Hi skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com. Welcome to what I'm pretty sure is episode 18, 17 or 18 at least, of our Top 5 Fridays news videos. As always, thanks for joining me. We've got a pretty light week overall for news, so I think we can get through things pretty quickly this week. If you haven't already, check out our ski test. I know I mentioned that last week. But yeah, check it out. Ski test is up, 2021 ski test. There's like an outrageous amount of information in there. So check it out. Let us know if you have any questions. Hope you guys are enjoying all that content. Hopefully your YouTube feeds are back to normal. I think they are. So thanks for bearing with us on that big bulk upload. And yeah, let's get right to the news. So first up, you may have seen this. This kind of just became a headline in the last 24 hours or so. FIS has decided to cancel all the United States World Cup stops this winter. So we talked about this a few weeks ago, and we were reading some reports and speculating, and it kind of seemed like maybe they were just going to cancel the U.S. stops for technical events, which would pretty much just mean Killington. But they have decided to not just cancel the Killington stop, but also Lake Louise and Beaver Creek. So basically all World Cup events will be in Europe this season. Now they've already made the announcement that the US stops will be back in the schedule for the following season, of course, pending any further variables. But I think that you can take a positive out of that. We'll get through this season. We'll have to cancel these events this year, but we'll have them back next year. So that's exciting. The Killington event is great. It's one of the most attended World Cup stops, period. So I know a bunch of people will be bummed that they won't be able to go, and out there and out west, Lake Louise and Beaver Creek as well. I'm sure people will be disappointed, but those events will be back the following season, and we will have an FIS World Cup season, just Europe-based. They've also started kind of consolidating the Europe schedule, basically in an effort to decrease the total amount of athlete travel time or the athlete travel requirements. So we'll keep looking at this. Realistically, the start to the World Cup season is like less than 2 months away, I think. So before you know it, we'll be right in the depth of the season, so to speak. So bummer that we don't get any U.S. stops, but not tremendously surprising. Now this is another kind of COVID-19 related topic, but it's also in response to just the increased amount of skier congestion that's kind of coming out of multi-passes. So for a second topic this week, Aspen is publicly working on a new traffic and congestion alert system. So basically, think about it like the alerts that you get on your phone if there's like a hurricane coming or something like that. This will be a system where if you subscribe to it, you will get on mountain notifications saying like, hey, there's a ton of people over there, maybe don't go over there. Or like, hey, this lift has a super long line right now, maybe consider going somewhere else on the mountain. So I think that's really cool. It certainly could help with COVID-19 situations, but I think there's a broader issue there. I don't know that you can just trust the public to minimize the congestion if we're talking about it from a COVID-19 perspective. I think we're going to have to take a few more steps than just making recommendations through a text message alert or alarm, so to speak. But really interesting, and I'm sure it's something that if it's successful at Aspen, I am sure we'll see adopted by other resorts. Stowe did a pretty good job this past season tweeting out kind of parking updates and stuff like that, and I know other resorts do too. This feels like it's just kind of taking it to another level. So really interesting. I like that kind of, we're modernizing ski resorts, so to speak, or bringing in our available technology into the experience of being at a ski resort. Number 3, this is actually also kind of coming out of Aspen Times. the Aspen area at least. So back in the middle of June, we talked about basically a case between Aspen Skiing Company and they brought in some other people too, like Altera, against Liftopia, saying that Liftopia owed a collective $3 million and that Aspen and these other organizations did not have faith that they were going to get paid. So basically tried to force them into bankruptcy. Now that has been thrown out. I don't know why. I didn't jot down the exact number, but that has been thrown out because Liftopia essentially countersued and said that Aspen Skiing Company did not get the amount correct. Now, Aspen Skiing Company went back and I think they proposed like $86,000 less than the initial $3 million. But basically, anytime in a case like this that there's a difference in the stated amount from debtors and creditors, it's just going to get thrown out. That's just how the law works. So yeah, as of now, this has gotten totally thrown out of court. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with this. Not only if this lawsuit comes back in another form, and also if Liftopia will be able to survive as a company and go back to being a profitable company. So interesting to keep an eye on. This kind of stuff is always interesting to me and interesting to us as a company. And this is kind of along the same lines, big finance stuff in the ski industry at least. So Peak and Burke, we've been talking about Peak and Burke and what's been going on there for years now. If you're unaware, basically back in 2016, Ariel Quiros and Bill Stenger were basically convicted of major fraud, frauding investors out of their money. The mountain was then kind of claimed or taken over by the state and the federal government. And Michael Goldberg was the federally appointed receiver in 2016. And now since then, they've basically been trying to find a buyer for both resorts, both Peak and Burke, that, under these two fraudulent people were under the same ownership. And they haven't been able to find a buyer basically because the price that he has set requires the funds to pay back these investors that were frauded out of their money. So they're looking to decrease the assessed value of both J and Burke. So the proposal was to decrease the value of J from 121 million to 58.5, which would essentially get the property taxes down from about $2 million annually to $1 million annually. So this is an effort to make it look more attractive to a potential buyer. Same thing in Burke. Burke would go from around 9 million to around 19 million to around 11 million. Again, to just reduce the property tax. Now, Stowe sold to Vail for, I believe, around $40 million. So these valuations, now I would have to look pretty specifically at the numbers in the accounting, but they don't seem outrageous to me. Now the big effect that it could have locally, and both of these resorts are only an hour from where I'm sitting right now, so this is stuff that it would affect us locally in the northern Vermont region. The J property tax accounted for about 2/3 of the town's total tax revenue. So, if you're cutting that in half, all of a sudden, that's a huge impact on the town itself, which would then fall on residents unless the total town budget was cut by the same amount. So, another development from J and Burke. Hopefully this thing gets resolved in some form. I will say that Michael Goldberg and everybody else that's been involved has done a really good job running these resorts. I've visited both resorts in the past few years, and they've done a really good job. But fingers crossed that we can find some buyers for them, and also fingers crossed that if they do get this valuation approved, it won't have a drastically negative effect on the town. So that's it for news topics. Now we have our edits of the week. First up, we have some really good skiing. This is right up my alley. Some very technical, high-end park skiing from, I'm probably going to mess up your last name, Sebastian Schirv. I'm going to go with Schirv, but I'm sure that's wrong. But yeah, really, really good. Check it out. Even if you're not a fan of park skiing, I highly encourage you to do so. Next up, this is more of like backcountry freeride style, a lot of point of view footage in this. Season edit from a gentleman named Ed Dujardin. Matt's giving me some tough names today. And then finally, we have some summer Mount Hood laps with Eileen Gu. That's the third last name that I'm probably pronouncing wrong. G-U, Eileen G-U, who I had heard of but never really seen much of her skiing firsthand. She's pretty young up-and-comer. Looks like she's sponsored by Red Bull and some other big names. So certainly will be one to watch for. I see a lot of similarities between her and Kelly Silderu, at least in terms of their overall skiing style. So that's it. That's our edits of the week. Thanks for joining me as always. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the last few weeks of summer. Get outside, do something fun, and we'll keep you updated with everything as soon as we hear about it. You know, we're all really starting to get anxious about what's going to happen with ski season. We are talking to people internally, reaching out to all of our little contacts within the ski industry. So as soon as we have any concrete news to share, we will certainly do so. And until then, we'll just, all keep our fingers crossed and stay as positive as we can. So thanks, guys. We'll see you out there on the trails. And once we get some snow, we'll see you on the slopes.